We're in Psalm 116, and yesterday we picked it up in verse 10. I believed, therefore have I spoken. I was greatly afflicted. He's testifying to his affliction, his time of hardship. I said in my haste, this instinctive response, all men are liars. Everybody's failed me. My hope was in men, basically. And now we're going to see a contrast today in verse 12, okay? What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits towards me? Now, I want you to follow the psalmist's experience, okay? He was surrounded by death and hell and threats. He was forsaken by all of his friends. That's why he said, all men are liars. Everybody's forsaken me. Now, this was a hasty response. This was a fearful, anxious, fleshly driven response. It was a response that revealed his eyes were on men and not on God. And I want you to notice this. It was the affliction, the great affliction, verse 10, that drove him through this hasty response, ultimately to earlier in the psalm, call on God to look up and see God put his soul at rest and save him. So where now, verse 12, he's able to look back on this with clarity, and he's able to say, wow, I am so blessed by God, I don't even know where to begin. You see, verse 12 is his place. Verse 11 was his hasty place. Verse 12 is his more measured, looking back on this whole experience. I've come through it. This is his wow place, okay? So verse 11 is his frustrated, fearful, anxious, desperate, everybody's forsaken me place. Verse 12 is his mind-blown, wow, what shall I render unto the Lord for all of his benefits towards me? Do you see the contrast? Okay. In the moment of haste and affliction, he's looking down and he's looking at people, and people have failed him. So it forces his eyes up to cry out to God. God saves him, brings him through, restores him. And verse 12, now he's celebrating. Now he's looking to all the benefits, and they're overwhelming. He was drowning in sorrow. He was drowning in death threats. He was drowning in neglect and abandonment and woundedness. And now he's drowning in benefits. Now he's drowning in blessings. What shall I render? How can I even begin to thank God for all of his blessings and all of his benefits? Where can I even begin to take account of all of God's goodness to me? His mind, his heart is in a very, very different place, okay? Why? Because he's looked up, because he's cried out, because he believed, verse 10, I believed, therefore have I spoken. He chose faith in his moment of affliction. He chose belief in his season of hardship, and God brought him through. So one of the big, big views of this psalm is, if you're in the middle of hardship, hey, you're just writing this chapter of the story, okay? God is untying your hope and your belief and your faith in mankind that are going to fail you. All of humanity will fail you. He's deepening your strength. He's deepening your hope and your trust in him. And you keep looking up, you keep crying out, you keep trusting, you keep choosing to believe, and you're writing a story that you're one day going to be able to look back and tell somebody, hey, you know what? I believed, therefore have I spoken. Oh my goodness, I was greatly afflicted. I even said in my haste, there's nobody I can trust. Everybody's failed me. Everybody's forsaken me. But now, wow, when I look at my life, I don't even know how to render thanks. I don't even know where to begin to sacrifice, to honor the Lord for all of his benefits towards me. I don't even know how to begin counting them or recalling them. They're too great to number, okay? And there's a very real sense that in this life, these experiences happen to us where we think it's all falling apart, and we might be a day or a week or a month or a year away from saying, wow, oh my goodness, I can't believe all the ways God has blessed. You know, my personal story in this, and by the way, there's going to be an eternal view of this as well. We're going to be in heaven saying, yeah, in life on earth, we had recurring experiences with death and sorrow and difficulty and betrayal, and where our faith was tested and our lives were afflicted. But from a heavenly view, his blessings are going to be infinite and eternal. It's going to take all of the ages to come for him to show the riches of the glory of his inheritance toward the saints. That's Ephesians, I think, 2. So, but in this life, we have these stories as well, okay? And it's like micro versions of the macro view, okay? One day we're going to have this cosmic eternal view. Right now, all we have is micro versions. One of my micro versions of this would be the fact that God brought me through cancer. And then God brought our family through a difficult and upsetting and disorienting transition from a long time ministry life in Southern California to a new but hurting church and a difficult situation and a disrupted life. We lost a beautiful house and moved into a house that needed a lot of work. We lost a life of reputation and trust, and a situation where we had lots of influence and people trusted us. We came to a situation where we were underwater in trust, and there was distrust, there was cynicism, there was suspicion, and for good reason, by the way. Not that we had earned that kind of credibility or lack of credibility, but that we inherited some track record of bad leadership in the ministry, going back decades, really. And so just the office of pastor was really suspect when we came to Emmanuel. And so there was disruption in our lives. We were disoriented, we were confused, we were perplexed. We felt like we were buried with overwhelming challenges. But 8 years later, we can look back and say, we don't even know how to begin to thank God for all of his blessings, for the way he brought us through. But I can tell you that's the product of a lot of lonely, icy, slushy, cold mornings sitting in Dunkin' Donuts, crying out to God and wondering what in the world is going on. Wondering what was God doing, feeling the weight of affliction. But God does beautiful work through afflictions. So 3 phases. There's coming into the affliction, there's in the affliction, and there's coming out of the affliction. Where are you? Maybe you don't feel like you're in an affliction right now. What I would say is expect it. You don't have to want it, okay? But you should expect it. If you're in the affliction, what do? You hold on to God. You cry out to him. You walk with him through it. You endure it, okay? The trying of your faith works patience. And let patience have her perfect work. You let the affliction do the work that God wants to do. And then you know what? It's like a tunnel. God's going to bring you out of the affliction. And you can anticipate, you can believe by faith that that's going to happen. And when he brings you out, you're going to begin to see the work that he does in that and through that and from that affliction, and you're going to celebrate. You're just not going to be able to believe all the abundant benefits that he's going to bring because of the affliction. Cancer is one of the best gifts that God ever gave me. How's that for a crazy testimony? But you know why? It's now I can recount all the benefits, all the blessings that he brought out of it. You say, well, I've got cancer, I've got some trial or affliction, and I can't imagine how he's going to bring benefits. Well, neither could I, okay? But he will. And you can trust him that he will. You can believe that he will. You can believe that one day you're going to celebrate all his benefits towards you. And right now you could begin that celebration by faith. A premature, faith-filled celebration of all the things God's going to do. His benefits towards you are amazing.